Welcome to Mudville, podcast about baseball and cinema. I'm Brody Staub.
I'm Nolan Rabine.
We hope you enjoy.
It's Mudville. It is Tuesday, August 22nd, and we've got a very special episode today of the podcast. Well, first, we've got a very special guest, and joining us today is Bradford William Davis. And how are you today?
Man, I'm good. I'm in the NRA. I'm in a prayer group with the VA, and I pack heat, so I couldn't be better.
You listen to me, bitch.
We had been trying to get Bradford onto the pod here for a couple of weeks and been trying to work out a movie that we could talk about. Switching up the sport, this is the first sports movie we've done that isn't baseball related.
I was better yesterday before we watched this movie. If you didn't ask how I am, but I was better.
Oh, yeah.
I'm now worse.
We decided with the recent headlines surrounding the release of Michael Oher's new book, in which he discusses his relationship with the film The Blind Side, as well as a lawsuit that has been filed and allegations that have been made against the Toohey family, of course, is portrayed in the film by Sandra Bullock and Tim McGraw. Oher has claimed that they never technically adopted him and they instead placed him under a conservatorship, which they told him was the same thing. It was not, and it was instead very financially predatory towards Oher, and he did not make any money off of this movie at all. They essentially took everything. Conservatorships had come into the news big time last year with the whole Britney Spears controversy.
Yeah.
The Tooheys have said that they're going to end their conservatorship, not that that means much or anything, but with this movie in the news, we felt it was a good time to revisit it. I had not seen this since around the time that it came out. I actually remember watching this on my way back from a middle school field trip. They had it on the big TV.
That is that kind of movie.
Oh, it absolutely is. And with it having been nominated for Best Picture, Sandra Bullock winning Best Actress, I was truly shocked by this. It was not anything like I remembered. But Bradford, I want to kick it to you first. What's your history with this movie, and what are your thoughts on it now?
Yeah, it's not the kind of movie I'm really trying to look for and watch. So this is basically my first watch of this film. Not basically, it is actually. I started watching it on the optimal way of watching a great American film, which is TNT.
They know drama.
Many advertisements. Yeah, they know drama. And so it was also available on TBS, and they know comedy.
So all the bases are covered.
Really, it's perfect for a dramatic and comedic film, or dramedy, if you will. So I never seen that because it's not the kind of movie that I'm trying to see.
Why not?
The purpose of this conversation, right, is to really unpack why this is a movie no one should
be subjected to.
Pure entertainment anyway.
Right.
I think there's intrigue. I think it's what it says about us is more interesting than what it says about any of the characters in the film. But it seemed kind of boring anyway. Just as an outsider when this movie came out, and then even back then, 15 years ago at this point, right? Kind of had a whiff of a white, what I would then learn was a white savior narrative.
Yeah.
Now described as a white savior narrative. So, that was kind of like my initial feel off of it, but I figured it would be an interesting watch, but with the news that you guys so eloquently described about Michael Oher alleging that he was not told the true difference between a conservatorship and an adoption, because the whole feel good ethos of this film was that this family that could not be more different than a large black man from the hood had truly and fully taken him in as their own.
No, they were trying to steal his money.
With no strings attached.
Right.
And nothing personally gained besides growing the love that had already organically existed in this beautiful, perfect American family. That was the lesson that was, that we were told. And then Michael Oher, at the very least, let's say Michael Oher is seriously disputing that, based on claiming that he had seen, that they had that they had conflated, adoption and conservatorships,
right?
In order,
saying that he was going to be part of the family and the whole,
and gain financially,
right,
from that. And so, yeah, well, that's what brought me here to TNT on,
on a Monday night,
wasting my Monday night,
right,
with my jaw being ever more attached from the rest of my body, as
just continually dropping more and more,
like, levels of racism that even I did not understand were existing in major American motion pictures.
Right. In 2009.
The Obama administration.
Yeah.
Like Obama was president.
Yeah.
This is back when we really thought everything got better.
We were saying that too. I was like, this is like perfect.
When I say we, I mean many people were quite hopeful. Who like less racism in the world.
Yeah, it's a shift, right? Or you'd hope. Yeah.
Props to everybody who had that hardcore leftist analysis of how of the American presidency at the time, but I was pretty hopeful.
Right.
I was too, man. I was.
Look, we were in 5th grade, and that was like we watched it in class, and it was a whole like it's a new chapter, and we're all like it's
Dude,
and then,
Obama won my elementary school election like 2-1.
Your elementary school election?
Well, it was 5th grade. I was about to leave.
You guys held like a presidential election.
They held one.
School? That's crazy.
They gave kindergartners ballots, dude.
I did not.
There were first graders who were adamant McCain supporters.
My brother had a friend. Quick tangent. My brother had a friend when he was in kindergarten.
Ourselves here. We're kind of young, but yeah, Brody, continue.
But quick tangent. My brother is 3 years older than me. So in I think it was 2000, right? So. My brother had a friend in kindergarten who he came over to our house. My dad always tells the story all the time. He was like, this kid was, like not like a know-it-all, but like he's for a kindergartner, he liked to think that he knew everything. He called Florida for Al Gore, like at 4 or something. My dad was like, "Oh, okay, good for you. Appreciate it, kid."
Oh, brother. Yeah,
I find that hilarious.
When the
he was
Blind
wrong.
Side came out, like you said, I didn't know what like a white savior narrative was.
Right.
Like I didn't, I certainly didn't know how to critically analyze a movie like this or like place it in the socio-political realm of where it's released into or anything like that. But like the fact that I had seen it when it came out,
I had not
once
seen
or twice. Okay,
I had not seen it before yesterday.
So I was the only one then who
it.
had seen this before then. So for me then, I found it interesting then. I felt like I was analyzing the mechanics of it so much more, like seeing, why this scene was written. Like there are so many lines in this movie that are played for such a like dramatic effect.
We were saying the wait for applause lines,
yes.
where it's like when it's just the two of us watching our living room, disgusted, it just
and they're
like
all
falls so flat.
God, yeah, but like not only that, but also like the relationship between the people who are making the movie and what they think their intended audience is. Like there are so many moments. They just felt to me like this was the last possible moment that something like this could even exist in mainstream culture. And like, I feel like the obvious comparison with something recent would be like Green Book, which won Best Picture like 5 years ago and drew similar complaints. That was also a movie that I did not really enjoy at the time.
Movie? Oh God, I forgot it won Best Picture.
Yeah.
What was that Natalie Portman movie where she goes?
But like
to
this makes that look great.
Like yeah,
I didn't like.
I never saw Green Book, but
yeah, you don't need to. But I mean, it's less like egregious than this.
Okay,
but. I mean, I was also looking up something else that I found kind of fascinating about this is Sandra Bullock now not only is in, spoiler alert for what I think of The Blind Side, but Sandra Bullock is now the only actress who is in 2 separate movies that I have logged 1 out of 10 on Letterboxd. Being this, the other one is Crash.
Oh God, yeah.
And then
that was a few years before that did win Best Picture, which I mean,
yeah, it did. Man. Yes, and then have either of you guys seen A Time to Kill?
No.
From 1992.
Nope, never seen it.
Yeah, no, it's based on a like Grisham novel, and it's another story where like Samuel L. Jackson is a father on trial, and like it's a very white savior trope movie with Matthew McConaughey. Sandra Bullock has really gotten 3 strikes on the white savior card. I mean, like I think she's out at this point.
You got to stop making these, man. Like it's I don't know. So I had never seen it before, and I knew who Michael Oher was, just being a football fan. And, I always knew he was like, oh, that's the guy from The Blind Side. They had the movie made about him. It's like, I sort of like tangentially knew the story. Like he's, brought into a white family and they raise him or whatever. Like I didn't know more. I kind of thought he was adopted as like a baby or something. I didn't really know much about it. And then I was amazed that like afterwards I said like, how people always say like you can't make Blazing Saddles today or whatever. It's like, that's bullshit. You cannot make this movie today. Like this is one movie that I don't think would get made today. Which in adverse of how that phrase is usually used is a good thing. So like it's, if there's been any progress made since then, it's that we are shocked that this movie got made at the time. And I don't think that it would get through like a production company and be able to, be produced at this point. But it is, I don't know. I was just like continually shocked, especially knowing that he can't, like, you gave me a context before we really started watching was that he was an All-American, like,
yeah, he was already an
lineman
all-pro football player before they met.
Not all-pro, all-American, like going into high school, but like it's so then they have this whole fucking like arc where he is like you have Sandra Bullock, who all of a sudden is a genius at coaching football, and like now she knows all the how to get through to this kid, and like all the he has to learn from her, and he had no idea what he was doing. And then the whole balloon scene, I brought it up earlier, but I'm amazed. He's playing football for the first time, and then, he's presented as being, like, slow.
Developmentally challenged, essentially.
Which I don't think he really is.
Complete nonsense. No. I mean, it is objectively nonsense. There was a report today, actually, that I just read that was released this morning where Michael Oher said
get in the way of a terrible story.
Well, yeah, where he said that the film did not portray the fact that he had never been given the resources to an ample education, and like as soon as he had that, he caught on like immediately, and that he was already, like we said, an All-American lineman before they met. Right. So it's like I said, I
read an article where he was saying like they didn't say anything about like my work ethic before that, considering I was already an All-American. They just said, oh, he just like is a natural wonder, and he's huge, so he's good at football. It's like, well, hold on.
Yeah. The movie portrays him as entirely helpless, and honestly, like he doesn't even look like he knows what's happening. Like most of Michael Oher's appearances in the first few scenes of the movie, he's shown in these sort of reverse shots where he isn't saying anything. For the most part, he isn't even moving.
Yeah, he has like 20 lines in the whole movie.
Before we get into this, like scene by scene, something else that I wanted to bring up about it was the connection to the book's author. Michael Lewis is also the author of a book that we intend to talk on this podcast extensively about it at some point, which of course is Moneyball.
That's problematic, but still not like, in a very, very different way.
Yeah. And Bradford, I wanted to kick this over to you first, because you tweeted that you had a few questions for Moneyball Mike. So if you don't mind, what were those?
Yeah, I love to figure out what happens in his head that makes him think that the subject of his next book is a genius. Because it seems as though far too often they are not nearly as successful as he portrays them to be. Look, we know about we are learning perhaps, but honestly probably should have known about Leanne Toohey.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about Billy Beane. He has, despite extremely limited resources, built a good team for a really long time. My understanding is that he's barely involved with the Open A's
Now,
like,
or are you saying that?
Soccer, yeah, now.
Back in the day.
I think he has like a bit of a
but
figurehead role now or something.
But for a really long time,
Yeah, of course. They found a way to compete for years. With the lowest payroll.
Yeah, of course. And the A's were a lot like the Rays of of yesteryear,
right?
And that
they
always they find good players where other teams are not looking as well. Hey, dope. Seriously.
Yeah,
like,
the overlooked, the undervalued assets or whatever. Yeah,
right, exactly.
Yeah,
but there also have been small market teams that have actually won the World Series. There are mid market teams that have won the World Series. Certainly, there are big market teams that have won the World Series. Billy Bean seems to not. And there's a course of level of randomness there. Admittedly, that is certainly a part of his record. And that he has actually not achieved the ultimate prize.
Yeah, that's the last. It's so funny that movie the whole time is waxing poetic about how smart he is, and it's like, by the way, it didn't work. It's
there were certainly limits.
Yeah.
In fact, if the Rays, right, which take a similar Moneyball-ish approach, right, to building their rosters, have gone much further. Limited payrolls, similar sorts of problems. There,
and even the Rays are kind of like regular season champions every
they don't
year.
Really
They've never gotten over the line.
In 2020, that was the closest they ever came, and I mean,
yes, but 2008 they went to the World Series as well.
Oh, that's true.
That's true.
I forgot about that.
They went to the World Series.
Was that the Carl Crawford team? Yeah,
the Rays win playoff games sometimes.
Right, right. That's true.
Sometimes, the A's
yes.
never do.
Yeah, I mean, I remember in what was it that A's team was exciting, and I at the time I actually had a cousin who was working for the A's, so I was like, oh, this is fun. I get to they're a fun and exciting team or whatever, but they're still, it's the little scrappy A's coming in to face down the big bad Yankees. It's just like 2002, and it's just, I don't know, it when push comes to shove, they don't shove. So they never really did. It's interesting that he is lifted up as this I don't know. We could also spin this into a whole thing about analytics as a whole because it didn't work. But I don't know.
You know what?
But again, I don't like attacking analytics for the same reason I don't like attacking math.
Well, no. That's not how I meant it. It has its place. It has its place. It has its place. Yes.
I would never attack analytics.
I'm not. Are you are you using it to as a scientific curiosity to understand what makes someone good at athletic competition,
right?
Or using it to make sure that that their production is divorced from the revenue that they produce for your
exactly.
Business,
Yeah.
What are you using the math for? It's like an Oppenheimer question, right?
It's how are you going to use it? I don't want to let go of this. How are you using it? Yeah.
Billy Bean is looking at the Rays and the Orioles payroll, like the Killian Murphy meme.
Yeah.
God. Right. And so I mean, and this is well tread ground, guys. I'm not the first person to mention that someone who is not mentioned in Moneyball is Miguel Tejada,
right?
Or Jermaine Dye, or
the Hudson,
Eric Bedard, is it?
Barry Zito,
Barry Zito,
Eric Chavez,
yes.
Eric Chavez. Yeah, I'm sorry, wrong name.
Talented, star players who they just forgot about.
Exactly. Star level players. Miguel Tejada literally won the MVP award, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. In that season, in the season they're talking about.
In the Moneyball season.
He's barely. He's not even in the movie.
He's not in the movie. He's not. They don't mention his name once. Yeah.
Because we have to spend a half an hour trying to understand how Chris Pratt takes first. That's
Okay, to be fair though, that Ron Washington scene is worth it for that that alone. But yeah.
But Chris Pratt, Scott Hatterberg, playing the found money of sorts,
right?
Scott Hatterberg,
right?
Again, good job.
But it also has a similar thing with it just mentions it, but Chad Bradford, they didn't like him because he threw weird. It's it seems that he likes those kinds of underdog stories because he wanted to focus on them a lot with the A's and with Michael Oher not getting the chance that he deserved because he was from from the hood or whatever. He needed a white lady to let him play football. It's
here's what I think the connection is, and it's something that I've been trying to grasp for a little while, is he likes to portray these underdog stories without ever critiquing the structures which cause them to be underdogs.
Well said.
That's always been my problem with Moneyball, especially, is like he talks so much about how Billy Beane is able to replace these players like Giambi and Damon with like 3 different guys who are able to match that production, and like how you were able to get more wins on an MLB team without payroll. But what's never said in that movie is that there could be more payroll. Like they could, like the owner could just write a check. Like there's no reason that the A's have to be lower than like 50 feet of shit in that movie. Like it's only ever portrayed as, well, this is the situation.
This is the way it is.
So this is how we're gonna make it work. Like it makes running a small market team seem like this like Herculean task, when more often than not it's the result of like a cheap owner. And especially with the A's, I mean, now 20 years later it's a much different situation than it was then. But like
I think there is value in telling a story where you don't necessarily, like, you just say this is the way it is and we're up against it, and like that's, you know, that can be fun. But like when it is a system that is, you know, right there to be critiqued, and like, you know, it's the you have the owner in the movie say, like, you know, he's like, I need more money. It's like, well, why don't we, like, you know, there's no scene where Brad Pitt is like, you were making millions off of it or whatever.
No.
It's like, you know, also, again, it's just
the owner is like on
Tejada.
speakerphone in that movie for 2 seconds, and
no,
that's
they go in and have a meeting with him.
Sorry, but
It's
the same
either way,
thing.
it doesn't matter.
It's like we're not going to do it.
Yeah,
That's
we're
all
not.
he says to him.
This is what you got, or whatever. It's like,
but it's
and the thing that's missed ultimately, in you know, it's like it's because Michael Lewis, I believe, is part of the structure that creates faulty underdog narratives.
Right.
Yeah.
He is very much ingrained himself in this.
He profits off of it.
Best-selling, best-selling author who tells stories about white people who are not as intelligent as, or I should say intelligent, as excellent.
Right.
What they do as the
people they're making their
in their field, between, you know, Miguel Tejada versus Billy Beane. You know, like Billy Beane, you know, again, so to be clear, he's a baseball player and he's not a smart guy. Like, so there's a lot of insights that he truly had that were very important and forward thinking at the time. But like, there are more Billy Beanes than there are Miguel Tejadas.
Right.
You know, the black Dominican immigrant from Bani, who against all odds.
I know. How about where's the Miguel Tejada movie? Like, man.
No, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
shows up and wins an MVP on a struggling team.
What kind of stories do you want to tell?
Right.
You know? Like, what kind of stories do you think people are drawn to? What kind of stories do you think sell books and movies?
Yeah.
You know, it's about the Billy Beanes and the Leanne Tuohys. You know, at least in the minds of many executives and I guess the people who make the business decisions.
It's about how you frame the story, and this is like both of these stories are not, like, you know, very clearly now, especially with, you know, all of, you know, the analysis people have done on both of them, like they obfuscate, like, you know, a lot of facts that really kind of played a hand in the actual story that would have made it better. But since he wants to frame it the way that he wants to frame it, it just, like, you know, it becomes this this spun narrative that does not tell the whole story, and tells a nice little Hollywood story in a packaged neatly with a bow tie on it, but it's like it does not represent the people involved. And especially when you tell stories like this involving real people who can then come back and say, like, hey, that's not how that went down. I don't know, you're playing with fire a little bit. You know.
It bothers me, like, but you know, you already knew that.
I'd assume.
That's why I'm here. But like,
right.
But that's the, you know, but that's sort of my thing with Michael Lewis, and I think I would say that there was quite a mask off moment connected to The Blind Side with him.
Mm-hmm.
When you see, if you're not sure if you guys caught this, but he did an interview. I want to say that it was like a Google Talk or something like that. Around the time that either the book came out or the movie came out, you know, probably the movie, right? And he says something to the effect of this. It's like, let me make sure I quote him correctly, but like, you know, but it's a very, you know,
why not make it up? He does
that. yeah. Right. Let me pull Michael Lewis.
Yeah.
You know? He was on the dean's list at Ole Miss, referring to Mike Oher.
Okay.
Which is a lot of the dean's list at Ole Miss. And now, whether that is true or not, right? Why would you say that? What do you get out of that?
Yeah.
And of course, it's a bunch of laughs. It's played purely as a joke, not as a structural critique of
his portrayal,
a compassionate structural critique about the failures of so-called student athletics.
Right.
And he gets into that stuff, and he's more perceptive, later in the talk. But right there, he's just punching down on a man who could punch him into the ground. If he had heard that,
right.
And it's real. It's nasty work, man. And so that again, whether or not that's true, maybe whether or not Michael or deserved to be in the dean's list or not, there is no business airing him out like that.
Right.
Airing out someone whose story has provided so much personal benefit to you, because you got the bestseller, you got to sell the book rights, you're becoming a millionaire because because this guy trusted you,
right? To tell a story,
with a part of his life,
right.
A very serious and fraught, part of his life,
and
you still had to go, and insult his intelligence, in front of, I don't know, hundreds if not thousands of people, at the
millions with the movie. The movie insults his intelligence. It's
the movie does, but just assuming for a second Michael was behind,
just in that room, yes,
all time, but the movie certainly captures the exact spirit,
right,
of what he says in that moment.
Something I actually felt like when we were watching the movie is now that the facade is off and we know more about the actual story, that would make a good movie. The kid who you could even frame it the same way, but take a critical look at the power structures and the inherent imbalance of power in this relationship between these people and how it was ultimately exploited by
if you want to use Michael Oher as
rich, fast food magnates.
Yeah.
That is an incredibly American story.
Extended
and
to
the fact that
college.
It was portrayed this for the audience that it was, and it won an Oscar, and it almost won Best Picture, and then it made $300 million. That's just as American.
Point I was going to say, if you want to then use him as a stand-in piece or what's the word I'm looking for?
Avatar?
Yeah, like an avatar for exploited black athletes who go through, the NCAA and they are a whole other, there is a very, very good story to tell of, but mostly poor black athletes, especially with football being that it's a fucking blood sport. It's there is, there's a story to tell there that this does not even want to touch. Mm-hmm. So
it couldn't conceive of that story.
Yeah, no, it doesn't want to deal with that. Yeah,
it's too enamored. It's got too big a crush on Leanne.
Right.
And her twang and the way she sashes her hips as she repeatedly says, more and more condescending and racist things.
Yes.
Everyone
and everywhere all the time. Yeah.
Well,
oh my God,
dude, she is she is the living embodiment of that Sarah Palin quote where it was the difference between a hockey mom and a pit bull is just lipstick. I feel like that's what they were going for, is that exact cultural moment when people thought that was cool, and that's what they were going for with her character, especially when Tim McGraw's in the car saying oh, I've seen that look, she's about to get her way.
And then the whole time she hates her husband so much. It's so funny. Oh my God, it's awful, but it's it's man, it's really, I don't know. There's just that character specifically too. I was saying in the beginning, I was because you said she looked like a mega church pastor. I was yeah, pretty much. If you told me that this was a story about these kids who charitably brought in this young kid who needed them and all these things, or it's about a story about where they saw something in this kid and they realized that if he makes any money, we could make some money off of him instead, I would believe the second one.
Not only did they pick the false narrative, they picked
don't
the
seem
one that was
altruists.
less interesting. Moneyball 2 is going to be about Brad Pitt stalking a Cuban 15-year-old.
It's funny you say that, because that reminds me of something early in the film that I feel almost kind of snitches on itself.
Yeah.
In a way.
Let's get into it.
And that's that scene in the beginning where the coach is trying to rationalize why he wants Mike enrolled in school, despite him not having the apparent academic, capacity or track record to be enrolled.
0.6 GPA or whatever.
To be enrolled or certainly play sports there.
Right.
And he says in the effect of it's the right and honorable Christian thing to do.
We can.
Now later in the film,
he's
exposed for being somewhat hypocritical there because he, as he's complaining about Michael not catching on quickly enough to how to play football,
right?
How to play football correctly, and he starts complaining, and someone, Leanne says, "Hey, wasn't it the right Christian thing to do?" Basically, being like, "Aren't you, shouldn't you remember, the reason why we all said we were going to do this, as a pointing out his hypocrisy." But I think it actually, in its own way, touched on something pretty honest and true about everyone involved in this operation. And it's just in the ways that people rationalize why they do what they do.
Right.
I don't think I certainly hope that Leanne and them were not conspiring to find a large man who could fit on an offensive line. Truth is stranger than fiction. Get Out exists for a reason. Because
I said this movie felt like Get Out.
Of how it is. It sure does, right?
Yeah.
Like Get Out from Michael Oher.
By Michael Oher.
But anyway,
yes.
It's like if
Bradley Whitford's Get Out.
Yeah.
But
Sorry, continue.
Human nature is that assuming that they weren't conspiring, right, from day one, actively at the forefront of their mind,
right,
to go out and extract a boy for labor, right, freely.
God. Yeah.
People, we all often rationalize the choices that we make and the reasons for why we make the choices that we do when they're, and attach valor when they're, to it, when it's really just greed and narcissism. That is, I believe that is the more likely and common reason that something like this could happen. If, and this, of course, assuming Michael Oher's account, is fully validated. As certainly, we certainly, I guess, hope that that the full truth comes out through the legal proceedings coming up. But anyway, even if they're not cartoony villains twirling their mustache, like you're trying to figure out how to, kill the Avengers or whatever.
Yeah, this would be worse.
It's still it's still nonetheless in its own way it's inadvertently insightful about how white people think about themselves.
It's there's that scene at the end where she, she's like, "Am I a bad person?" And they're like, it's like, "Why do I do the things that I do?" And she's like, "You just want to help everyone." It's like, well, hold on. Now knowing what we know, it's like
you stopped her from a moment and said that's so bad.
Wait a minute. She was almost there. Let her go.
Genuine repentance.
Yeah, she needs to think about that, Tim.
They create so many two-dimensional side racists for her to morally posture over, where they can prove that she's
they give you the cartoon villain
to them.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I will say two things that this movie did that actually made me laugh. One was the thing where he had a different shirt in every scene.
Well, we were saying, because we realized he wore the same shirt for the first 45 minutes, and then she took him shopping. He was wearing a different color of the same shirt for the next 45 minutes.
No, the other thing was when Sandra Bullock called the redneck at the football game Deliverance. That got a laugh out of me as well. But that was just
I died laughing when they said that he, first of all, a few things. Early on when they were like, "We don't even know how old he is." And they were like, "We only have a few records." It says here his IQ test scored in the 6%.
Yeah,
it's
how do you have his IQ
but
test?
He took an IQ test. And also, then they're like, he scored in the 4th percentile in math, 6th percentile in science. But there was one thing that he did well. And she's like, "What was it?" 98th percentile in protective instincts. I'm like, oh, fuck off. He was born to block. It's this is
another
ridiculous.
One of those
hold
it's for a
ridiculous
moment. Yeah.
Oh my God. He was born to be a lineman. It's okay, this is it's just so insulting to this man. Oh my God. It's amazing.
But why don't we really get into this movie now.
Well, Bradford, any last?
Bradford, anything else before we
quick shots you want to get in?
I'm excited to unpack.
You're good. Okay.
Very beautifully shallow.
Beautifully shallow. Didn't name my next album.
Of how white people see black people, how white people see themselves.
All right,
let's do it.
Well, it starts with Sandra Bullock narrating Joe Theismann's infamous injury where Lawrence Taylor snapped his leg and he never played football again, which is immediately cynically used as like a comparison to like what can happen if nobody's watching your back, like which immediately cuts to the introduction of Michael Oher, who is introduced as this impoverished kid with a drug-addicted mother and an absent father who is big and tall and athletically gifted. Like we said, though, that the movie incorrectly portrays him like essentially as being developmentally challenged.
Hey, whatever happened to Steven?
Steven's
the kid that it was Big Tony, I think, right? Brought the two of them to the high school. He was like, Steven.
We never see him.
We never see him again. Never see him again.
It's like his
that's why he was there. Yeah,
he's just a plot device.
So the guy who brings Michael to the school, just for context, brought along. He brought Mike along because he had this kid Steven who was supposed to be this amazing athlete, and he's like, that's the kid you want. But also, like, there's also Big Mike. He's just there to ride along or whatever. And then they look out, and then he's like, oh, well, Big Mike's the guy we want. Steven apparently is an amazing athlete. We never hear from him again.
Yeah, he's just purely a plot device. Yeah. But anyway, Sandra Bullock, Leanne Toohey shows up at the same school dressed like the Righteous Gemstones. She's got her husband, who is Sean Toohey, and her kid
Tim McGraw.
Yeah, portrayed by Tim McGraw, and her kid SJ, who truly is just an all-time shitty movie kid.
Oh my god!
Like, this kid is basically Morty
out of,
without
1986.
Anxiety. Like, he introduces his dad as he owns 1 million Taco Bells. So I'm immediately like, oh, Jesus.
Taco Bell.
Sean Toohey, like, basically doesn't have anything to do in this movie. He's kind of just, like...
bullied by Sandra Bullock.
Along for the ride. Like, the inciting incident, of course, is when they're driving home and they find him walking down the street, and she tells them to stop the car and goes out and talks to him. Like, she says, do you have anywhere to go? And where they agree to take him in. Even during that scene, like, I wondered if it's paced so awkwardly that I was wondering if, like, the original script maybe, like, had his character offering, like, some initial resistance, and then they cut that because they had to portray everybody as, like, equally angelic. Tim McGraw also is just like beige paint in this movie. Like, he does nothing. Like, I barely remember that he was in it at all. Baffling scenes for me in which they inform Michael Oher that his father has died, and that the man who was tasked with telling him, for some reason, makes the insane choice of, like, turning it into a riddle, where he's like, there was a man, and he jumped off a bridge.
Do you remember the story?
And we don't know if he fell. But Michael, that man was your father. I was also very surprised at, like, how much of the plot moving forward, like, as it becomes apparent that they're going to adopt him, like, becomes about the legal specifications of the adoption. Like, that honestly shocked me. Like, now that we know the truth about it, like, you would expect that somebody in their position who at the time would have been like, we're getting away with something crazy. Like, they might want to gloss over those details.
Yeah, there's the moment where they say, like, well, he's 17, he's about to be 18. There's, like, no point to adopt him. So it's like, oh, well, that means, so you're worried about having responsibility for him. Like, later on, that's the reason that they don't want to do it. Like, they don't want to adopt him because they'd have to take on full legal responsibility for what, like 6 months? Like, once you turn 18, you are, no longer legally responsible for, like, your children, I don't think. So, like, I don't know.
Yeah, they make so much of a question about what they're going to do about it, and then, like, act, and then the movie portrays them as, like, heroes for ultimately adopting him. So, like, like we said, the fact that all of this new information has come to light over the past week, it just adds to an even more cynical reading of what was already a very cynical movie. Another one of those like side characters I was talking about, like that scene where she is at lunch and the woman says something like, "Oh, aren't you scared about having your daughter in this under the same roof as this like large man or whatever?" And she says, "Shame on you." And it's like this whole moral posturing scene. It was where she says, "Is this like a white guilt thing?"
Oh yeah. I mean, honestly, it's kind of connects it to just what we were saying earlier about how the film in certain ways tells on itself.
It's aware that this is something that needs to be questioned.
Right. It's like the worst person we know at that point made an excellent point.
And they do nothing to elaborate on it.
It's a reasonable question.
Right.
At this juncture.
Yeah. And then she treats it like she's just like, "What is wrong with you?" It's like, maybe you should ask that question.
Then it goes, she goes off, buys some clothes. They go to the DMV. There's the whole scene where she is like raising hell with the like government workers. There's a scene where she goes and meets Michael's mother, who then calls Leanne a fine Christian lady. Truly, I couldn't believe how explicitly religious and even political that this movie is. Like when Kathy Bates shows up as Michael's tutor and they make the whole thing of, "I'm a Democrat," and she's like, and it's like
a
that
big gotcha moment.
Like that, like it's played for a laugh in a movie, but like that is like one of the things I was talking about, where I was saying like that is the last possible moment where you could have the protagonists of a Academy Award winning movie othering Democrats and like treating them like aliens. Like, it goes without saying that America has become so like politically divided that could never play for a general audience anymore. But like, even at the time, like I was pretty shocked just watching this, even as a cultural relic of a time when I felt like discussing politics in the mainstream at all was thought of as pretty taboo, or at least
that's a good point.
That was my like memory of it. And I was very surprised that they like turned it up to that level, like politically, but especially with the you're a fine Christian lady scene, and like it's the right Christian thing to do. And
do
like,
we want to talk about all the Christian stuff? Because it's like,
I feel like we already are.
No, it's just like, it's so much. It's like
there was
the moment where he goes, "I wanted to get him out of the public school, and I needed to make sure he got into a nice Christian school," or whatever. It's
Oh my, within the first,
that's the first scene,
5 minutes of the movie,
one of the first scenes
advocates for private religious education.
Right.
There's like literally a scene.
I worked in private or religious education as a substitute teacher. It had nothing to do with the religious aspect, just as a sub. Let me tell you, it's different than the public education that I got, and not much for better. So it's I don't know.
There's literally a scene where Michael Oher is like leaving his like neighborhood basketball court, and he walks and he looks up at like a Christian school sign, and I'm like, God, was this like truly? I think if this movie was made today, it would be for the like God's Not Dead audience. It would be for the like explicitly right wing Christian movies.
What was it? The Sound of Freedom types?
Like something like that. I mean, some of the things that are said in this movie would just only be able to exist in like something like that today, where it's like
very specific
one of those
Yeah.
cheap movies that's made just for like old people.
Yeah.
The kind of thing that is made so that you could buy it at a Walgreens for $2.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
they show it on the bus like Cocoon. It's like,
but it's like the religious stuff is interesting. Like, on one hand, it's part of the more honest parts of this, and that it is depicting a kind of world where
people buy into the values.
Christian faith is very important. At least the Christian faith as they believe and articulate it, is very important. You know what I mean? These are not secular. This is not the Reddit conservative art of our day.
Right.
But they're different.
Right.
They're evangelicals or white evangelicals, right? But like, and so building that world. I think the movie does do a decent job of doing that in some ways. In some ways, right?
Like, I mean, this is the world that they live in. Like, it makes sense that they would all be like that. Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. But then at the same time, because the movie is not sufficiently introspective, any sort of insights, as we, been a narrative, a recurring theme in this conversation is that all the insights are stumbled upon by accident. Rather than
they don't mean to make you think, but then you have to.
But there's so much more to the story of a school like this. Like, Christian schools in the South have a really sordid history, especially if the school was founded anywhere after 1960.
Okay.
They're segregation factors,
right?
It's
a reason to get the white kids away, kind of
created because public schools are being integrated with black people in their city or town. And according to Michael Lewis, if you read his essay, The Ballad of Big Mike, he said if you don't want to spend $5 on or 5 cents, I guess it's probably at this point. A copy of the blind side of the book. Leanne Tui's father pulled her out of the Memphis City public school system, right after they had officially integrated in 1973, which is hella late, by the way.
Yeah.
Anything about civil rights history, because Ruby Bridges was integrating in the 50s,
right?
But whatever. Brown v. Board of Education, it's yada 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 stuff that a third of this country, it's probably illicit to even say this. So this podcast might be banned.
None of them are listening to us. Oh my God,
I think we've pissed them off. But
if they were, they would have been gone by episode 2.
But true sample facts: 1973, Memphis City schools, integrated, and of course private prep, Christian prep schools, arrived for people with the means, to do so,
right?
To segregate, to resegregate,
right.
And so they would not have to have the Michael Ohers of the world in the school. Leanne Tui's, father pulled her out, as I just said, from public school to that Christian school that Michael Oher ends up attending, as a way of,
keeping,
I guess, instilling the values.
Yeah,
they did. So in some ways, I can imagine, it's like, I can imagine Leanne Tui thinking, man, I am not my father's daughter, which is a point that he actually kind of makes during one of those salad dinners, salad lunches.
They do mention it very, very briefly.
When they fearmonger about her dad.
Right? Yeah, he'd be rolling over or something by now.
Rolling over his grave, right? And so I'm sure she took that as a point of pride in that, no, I've taken a step further, where my dad would, when he's seen with a Negro,
right?
Here I am, I don't know, letting him drive a car,
That's
so, and so, but again, it's just in its own weird and unintentional way, it shows the insidiousness and or I should say the adaptability of racism,
Absolutely. You'll find a lane.
You think you've escaped,
right?
The sins of the past, but here you are reproducing it in your own way. That may not be literal lynching, but it's still insufficient for the kind of world that I want to live in.
That's interesting. That makes I had not thought about the role of a Christian school in the South. That's interesting. I just hadn't.
I wasn't aware of that particular history.
It makes complete sense.
That's true all over the American Southeast.
Yeah,
and was also according to Michael Lewis's essay, which again, it's Michael Lewis, so gigantic asterisk in 170
Sure.
font.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
What was a school that was erected right around the time that Memphis integrated.
Man. Wow, man. That's a lot. That makes it worse. So much worse. But I mean, it's
that story is interesting though, right?
Oh, no, it is
fascinating.
It doesn't get told.
It is.
That's the other half of Southern religion that that
it's what it's used for. Yeah,
it doesn't get rendered and articulated in this movie, but it would be fascinating, and that's worth, and could make for a good movie. Here had the ability to make a good movie, which they don't.
Every fascinating thing about this movie, we learned about it afterwards.
Yeah, and it's nothing to do with the actual text of the film.
Absolutely.
But the reason that all of the Christian iconography and the way that they speak and everything comes off the way it does to us now is because that we have associated it. Like we sort of know things like that without knowing it. You know what I mean? Like you feel it in the way that they speak and what it, why they use religion as the stick that they use it as, to the way they want to control things or whatever. Because when you have conservative Southern Christians saying things about that, inherently that why they're doing it is because they want their own way, where it can appeal to whether it's homophobia, racism, whatever, anything that they don't like. They
see
use
it as
religion as the
means
stick to keep you in line and not expose them to it. So that's kind of why I think when you hear them saying that's the Christian thing to do, it's like, okay, we know what that means. It means that it means the way that you are going to keep your order and not let anybody else into it.
Yeah, this movie never questions their idea of what it is to be a Christian. And how could it when it's
no,
produced?
It's not gonna
it has to be done culturally, and the fact that this looks so ridiculous to us 15 years later, and it was such a success in 2009,
almost won Best Picture.
I almost don't know. Yeah, it almost won Best Picture. I almost don't know what to make of that.
No,
here's a question.
Yeah.
Would this make Obama's summer reading list?
Yes.
If he was president.
At the time, yeah. Yes, definitely. Right?
Imagine Twitter's around in 2006 or whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
This is the kind of stuff that would have been
Obama drops his playlist, and it's the Black Eyed Peas.
Right.
And, 2006.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Kanye back when he wasn't anathema.
Right.
And,
right.
And that's also, this new Michael Lewis book.
It's those centrist
totally
politics from back then when it was anything that not that disregards the role that race plays in something like this, a story like this, and just tries to look at the human side or whatever without acknowledging the politics or the history behind it. Just being well, can't we just have a nice story or whatever? It's that kind of. He would
put this next to something that's politically radical, like he did with the card counter, where everybody's what? And it's just so frustrating that everyone's what do you think the movie's about, dude? That. I feel you have that experience with Obama's lists every year. But to answer the question, I absolutely do think this would make it. It would be right next to My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, whenever those came out. Once it turns into sort of a montage for college coaches recruiting Michael Oher, and when you have all these shots of Nick Saban going wow, or literally Tommy Tuberville being I want him. It's crazy that he's in the movie, but even just moving past that, once it goes into that for 15 20 minutes, and at that point it kind of goes from being a
it starts really
hate
dragging.
watch to just being a drag. I don't really have anything interesting to say about that section of the movie other than
I will say
boring.
that again, if they wanted to have made that interesting, again, the NCAA exploiting poor kids, you could do the whole thing, them giving them anything they want, the family can have whatever they want, and it's strictly due to his athleticism or whatever, and they're gonna make sure that the family is set. It's, I don't know, there's a lot that you can that you could have done with that scene, because all these colleges start showing up.
The argument is I would very gently push back on that and say that the movie does make a subtle argument about the NCAA's failures
with the lady at the end,
the true and pure love of a family,
right?
With the first scene of the movie, right? Which then gets becomes a climactic.
You never asked why I wanted to go there. Yeah,
of this woman who, by the way, happens to be black. The black characters in this film, even besides Michael, are very interesting, and these sort of archetypes that they are all place to perform in,
right?
But she's is highly skeptical, that these nice little white Christian family could be that nice,
right.
And truly only want to raise him for his benefit and not for their own.
We were saying last night,
which is like a totally legitimate thing to think.
She's now with the modern reading. Yeah,
she's the hero of the movie.
She's the hero now she is. Yeah. God, like she is now the hero. If you watch that now, it's like, yeah, let's go. Like, yes, question it.
If we haven't made it quite clear for the listener, there's an arc towards the back end of this movie where they start looking into the Tuohy's adoption, quote unquote, of Michael Oher and like whether it was used as a recruitment tool for Ole Miss. Of course, the movie even
which it just misses the mark, just a little bit.
But then it like wildly misses the mark by even absolving them of that by having the whole scene where like where she says to him, Michael, if you go to college, you should go to Tennessee, which the movie makes it clear that the family famously hates.
Just her telling him what to do.
You have the whole thing with Kathy Bates telling like a campfire ghost story about Tennessee, which like it's absurd that
I was in this movie called Misery, Michael.
From there, it goes into the whole like I'm a Democrat thing, and then Tim McGraw has the line like, "Who thought we would have a black son before we knew a Democrat?" Which that's a wild line. My God.
I kind of love that line.
I mean, like, man,
I got organic, LOL.
and then like
not because it wanted to.
Before we get to like the like ending here, one thing that I felt was really should not have been blown over or played as it was at his graduation scene where they put up this like baby picture of him, and they asked, where did you get this picture of him? And she goes like, oh, it's just a like stock photo I found on the internet.
She cut it out of a magazine or something.
And like they play it as like a nice
critically with no criticism.
No, it's like, oh, what a nice thing to do for him. What?
Like, they portray it as like the nicest thing ever. Like there's a shot.
You Googled a picture of a fat black baby.
Yeah, and then we're like, here, this is Michael.
And said, yeah.
That's a fucking Always Sunny bit.
And you really thought that, and you thought that was to your credit.
Yeah. And then she's like, am I a bad person?
It's just good God. Yeah, well, like, there's
obviously.
Yo,
at that point.
That's the moment that you're like, hey, maybe remember when you grabbed a magazine clipping of a black baby and you're like, that's Michael. Like,
probably my
not great, Leanne.
Worse is that like, it's all these dating pictures, right?
Oh my God. Yeah.
But in that, again, referring back to the New York Times Magazine piece, the Tuohys apparently had a picture of Michael as a child because there's a picture of him maybe he's like 10 or so.
Sure.
But like one that would have been fine.
Yeah,
like
you could do that.
Like the whole like he clearly stands out in the school. Everyone knows.
I actually want to go back in that scene and see if anybody else had one that was not just a baby picture. Yeah. That would be so much worse.
In the NYT Mag story, like they have a picture of him as a kid.
Right. Oh my God.
And it's the photo credit is from the Tuohy family.
Right.
Which means
so they had
that they could have done that. They didn't even have to include that scene.
The film tells you that they had it.
They just decided that would be cool.
Like the magazine article says that it has it, and yet the film was still like,
oh God,
no, we can go more racist.
Like,
we can make it even worse.
Make it worse.
We can make it worse. But but again, it was all to make Leanne Tuohy more sympathetic,
right? Because she went out of her way to go like do this supposed to be nice thing. I mean, there were a few moments where I think we were like, what? It was like that. The 98% in the protective instincts and the father dying, we were just like, what is happening? Like, are you serious? You're not going to like, analyze yourself on that one, maybe? Like,
the announcement of his father's death was for me the most absurd.
Oh, and the balloons.
Mention the balloons too.
Yeah,
but you do that right now, actually.
That's when he's playing football. For like the first time, he's All-American in real life.
He's by the way, we should mention he's portrayed in the scene as not knowing what he's doing on a football field.
He like has no idea how to play. He's like getting into this like terrible stance and all these things, and then there's a moment where he's like mid block and he gets distracted by a thing of like a cluster of balloons in the air, and then the coach is like, "They're balloons, Michael, focus," or whatever. It's like, are you fucking kidding me?
Ridiculous that actually made it into the movie.
I mean, who, like, what the it felt like that was a bit from a terrible like Adam Sandler movie about like some kid who gets scooped up to play football. Like, I mean, it's like, I mean, that was like amazing that got in. I
truly shocking.
Yeah. And then that also goes back to the same thing then when Leanne, not like, she has to then go explain how football works to him, and all of a sudden he's getting into a beautiful 3-point stance and like, learning it. He like sheds a block and he picks up another guy coming in off the edge. It's like, he didn't know how to do that a second ago, and then Leanne told him to protect them like their family, and all of a sudden he has a great technique. Like all these things. It's like,
she tells him to pretend that the quarterback is her and that the running back is her son, and all of a sudden he's Andrew Thomas. And then getting into the end, like sort of the climax of the movie, another truly dog shit scene where he goes back to his old neighborhood and confronts the like drug dealer.
Oh wait,
like,
what did his IMDb say? Hold on.
The like head of the gang or whatever, and it's T-Dog from The Walking Dead.
Iron E. Singleton, or Iron
Iron E. Singleton.
There's a capital E. I don't know if it's Iron E or Iron.
Yeah, and like
and it's worth noting that this man has been talking wild disrespectful about Sandra Bullock's tight booty.
Yeah, the whole time.
The whole
also,
movie.
wait, so
he is slobbering over this white woman, throughout the film.
Whenever
every
time she shows up,
usually in the distance,
calls her Snowflake, which is really funny.
It is tropey to say the least.
Yes, a little bit too much.
Like how this black male degenerate couldn't I don't know, keep his zipper up.
That climactic scene even culminates in him making a violent rape threat towards Sandra Bullock and her daughter, to which Michael Oher snaps and like attacks him,
right.
And like that's the
protect your family, Mike.
Like physical altercation that they need for like to lead to the like denouement or whatever, right. But it's really just a plot device of a scene that again plays into like just some of the worst racist perceptions.
Then, by the way, he has flashbacks during that scene to when he was taken away from his mother as a baby.
Yes,
by,
he does.
Like CPS or something. Which, by the way, they do not touch that at all, and that seems like a really important thing for this whole kid's backstory, where he's separated from his mother. Maybe we could talk about that at all, but it's completely relegated to just like random flashbacks that barely tell the story. Like, I don't know. I like the things that they choose to elaborate on or go into it's telling, to say the least.
The only appearance of Michael Oher's mom actually in the movie is when she's telling Sandra Bullock what a nice Christian lady she is.
Right.
Literally, like
that she says
completely ridiculous. Yeah, I mean that scene just feels gross to watch, like knowing that it's definitely fabricated, just like the rest of this. It might not be hyperbolic to call this the most exploitative movie of the century.
Especially, it's a true. He's a real person with an actual story that this just is not.
A real person with a much more interesting story than this.
Yeah.
One of the final scenes of the movie where they're dropping him off at college, Sandra Bullock says to him, "If you get a girl pregnant out of wedlock, I'm going to come back here and cut off your penis."
Yeah. And he's like,
truly absurd.
Okay. Like what?
Bradford, you wanted to comment on that?
Yeah, let's talk about the blindsided sex.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
seriously. Yeah. Because I find that to be unintentionally one of the most interesting parts of this film.
Yeah.
And one of the most grotesque, actually, because there was that scene where he's dropped off and he says, "I'm gonna cut your whatever off," right? She said she threatens him if he.
Oh, she didn't say whatever.
Yeah.
I'm being PG here.
Of course.
No, it's a.
We can say anything we want. We have no sponsors or censors.
Yeah, yet.
I'm glad you guys are unbought.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I'm like the corporate media.
We wouldn't mind being maybe bought a little bit, just on the side. Anyway, go on. Yes.
We could be rented.
Yes, rented. Anyway, go on. Go on.
Okay. Unbought, but could be bought.
Unbought but available if for the right price. Yeah.
For sale.
We could carve out some ad time.
This is the episode because the last episode I listened to you guys was the TikTok influencer one. Of sorts.
Yeah, we were like, they're all bought, but like, hey,
bought,
you guys want to maybe throw us some money for an episode?
Wait, why can't I get on the grip?
Like, that's the problem. We're not part of it. Then we'll shut up.
We'll sell out like in a woke way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Soros.
Yeah, there we go. Come on, man. Drop a check.
Blindside and sex.
Yes.
So there's that scene at the college where they drop him off in Ole Miss, right? But there's another scene too, maybe about 20, 30 minutes prior, but in that third act, right?
Yeah.
Where they're really trying to get him into college,
Right.
And Leanne is talking about all these coaches and all these recruiters who are
yeah,
who are taking him out to
the titty bar,
who are whining and dining with. Yes, and in the quote, she says, one of them took him to a titty bar. The boy had nightmares, for 3 weeks.
Right.
And I found that to be so compelling.
That's
what 18-year-old kid would have nightmares about
what are you saying about him?
Boobies.
Yeah. Like, what is that supposed to mean? Yeah.
That's weird.
That's really weird. Yeah.
I can imagine, obviously some people are more prudish or less into sex. Some people aren't into sex at all. Right. But
to have nightmares?
But they portray him as sexless.
Right. Asexual.
And like not even asexual because that offers a level of autonomy.
Right.
How you define yourself.
Right.
So I don't think that applies. Like castrated.
Good point.
He's a eunuch.
Yes.
He's more of a eunuch than he is.
Yeah.
Someone on the LGBTQIA
spectrum. Right.
That's and they and that is that was that scene right there was where I was like, oh, this is like Birth of a Nation for
Yeah. So wait, I don't think either of us have seen Birth of a Nation.
I have not.
Can you elaborate a little bit?
Vaguely familiar.
I have not seen the entire thing. I've seen pieces, but the Birth of a Nation is a seminal American film. By I think his name is D.W. Griffiths.
Yes.
That is again like The Blind Side, a very compelling look at how white people understood themselves and their fears of black people.
When does it take place?
It's all about like a race riot and how you have to subject, how if you don't restrain black people, they will rape your wives and your daughters and kill your brothers and fathers. Oh, God. And so they have to be violently restrained. Save for a couple of good ones who are very docile and are not interested in sex anybody.
Sure.
Like that is
I see
a view from 10,000 feet run through of this very very again this. It's if they make him interested in sex, he's a threat. Expressly white supremacist propaganda film. It's not a talkie because it's from the teens, of the 20th century. So, but I find that the way that The Blind Side portrays black characters is quite similar.
Right.
There are the insolent, Negroes, insolent and uppity, that think that they're better than they actually are. Which you see that with the
Alton, the irony single,
the cynical NCAA representative. Who challenges their whatchamacallit, the sincerity of this familial tie.
Bites the hand that feeds them.
Yes.
Or whatever.
Right. Yeah. They are there are savages, and you see that in the whenever they're in the hood, right? Like and these black men get incredibly disrespectful around this porcelain doll of Leanne Toohey, who where again they can't keep it together while she's around and start sexually harassing her and talking about her teen daughter as well, right? Which brings Michael to a rage, and then Michael, but then Michael is shown to be safe and different from these because
Right.
he
He's
is
sexless.
ignorant
Yes.
and docile and very important, for a man of his height and weight,
Right.
sexless.
Right.
He can't pose a threat because he's not interested in a woman like that.
Right.
That's a
Now again,
perfect
the
reading.
real Michael Oher has 4 kids with his partner of 17 years.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, he married like very recently after he had those kids with him.
Right.
So so I guess Leanne never
It
fulfilled
wasn't
that promise.
aware.
I
Yeah.
guess that never happened.
Yeah.
It's something to continue procreating.
Yeah.
But it should, but like yeah, I don't know. None of us know the contours of his sexual orientation.
Well,
or
sure.
But clearly, like
Also, we don't need to. Like, he's probably a regular person. Yeah.
Yeah. Like he enjoys. Like
And it doesn't matter. Yes.
Creating life.
Yeah.
Creating
Sure.
life with a long-term partner.
Right. Right.
Whether it was under the blessed and sacred Christian covenant of marriage.
Right.
And that should be celebrated.
Yeah.
Like you still and so
it's just weird to make him so averse to it.
It's a
Yeah.
gross misrepresentation
Yeah.
of who Michael Oher is.
Absolutely.
To be like, oh, he's scared of boobs.
Right.
And also like you better not you better not do what he actually might have been already in a way of doing by the time this movie came out, which is having consensual sexual relationships, with his long-term life partner,
Yeah.
And so
That's,
come on, man.
man.
You didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
You did not have to do that to tell that story. But except the story that they wanted to tell was one of a man who could
He can't pose a
threat. Don't have
threat.
to fear as a gentle giant,
Right.
Because he does not have a libido.
Sure.
Whatever. Like he can live in the same room as Collins because he's not capable.
Right. It's not because he's like a decent person. No.
An attractive teen. Attractive.
Right. Right.
And so, but it's it's nasty. Like that's a really really nasty. And that's where the movie turned for me in this sort of like fairly like boring but sterile curiosity.
Right.
So
sure.
like, man, this is like setting us back
I
as
mean,
to how we understand, black men and black people at large.
This is
Speaking
another
as
thing.
as
Like,
a black man
this
for
is
people who are listening and not seeing my face.
also,
It's
by
just
the way,
insulting.
an interesting flip side to that is his mother, who they characterize as being extremely promiscuous, and they tell the whole story. Like, she doesn't even know who his father is, and all these things, and like, it's just it's the way that they use those two things to like characterize these people is like he's afraid of boobs, and she is like like going all over the place, and now she doesn't whatever, her life's a mess and all these things, and like that's a good point. I had not thought about the way that they show sex or they use it as like a story device, but it's there and it's really weird. But yeah.
Bradford, do you have anything else to say about this movie before we wrap it up?
Man, it's
That's a loaded question.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah.
I've said a lot, but I'll say this, man. The racial dynamics that exist in this film are not unique to this film for sure, but they are louder than I have encountered in a really long time.
Yeah.
I find it to be a movie that I could not recommend for your enjoyment, but
Right.
I could recommend it for your education.
To study.
I think so long as these very regressive and negative depictions of black people are not something that would I guess be a lack of a better word, a trigger, to you. So
right.
Speaking no one should be under any obligation to watch this movie.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Like,
Except for us, unfortunately.
Especially people, who may find themselves, in some ways negatively represented by the stereotypes, in this movie. But,
right.
Nonetheless, it is. I think that if with the right reading lens, it's an incredible warning to the stories that we are so inclined to tell about ourselves, and we're all in some ways capable of doing so, regardless of whatever sort of identities that may intersect in your life that lead to structural challenges.
Sure.
We can all tell us. We can all be at times in our own way, prideful and rationalizing, who
right.
we are, versus who we think we are versus who we actually are. and this is a great warning on how it's a great example of how to do that. I guess all the way to the Oscars.
Yeah.
But also why you shouldn't.
Right.
Well,
man,
because 20 years later, people on the Unbot podcast, Mudville.
Yeah, we're gonna rip you apart.
We will get your behind.
Yeah.
Like,
watch out.
It's over.
Yeah.
Canceled.
I mean, man, well said. It's this was a rough watch.
Well,
I mean,
thank you so much for bringing it to us. Like I said, I know we'd been trying to pick a movie for a little bit, and I think this was a great one for us to talk about. We certainly got a lot out of this, and I'm glad that I checked back in on this movie to recognize truly just what a piece of shit it is, and how much different it is even from my 12-year-old memory of it.
Yeah. Bradford, do you want to do any, I know you work or write baseball articles or anything. Do you have anything any baseball you want to talk about for a quick second? Do you have a second to talk baseball, or
any parting thoughts on the league? Anything pressing?
quick thing that we can get your thoughts on.
Oh man, Yankees are horrible.
Actually, just lost.
We've been yelling at the Yankees a lot.
They just lost, and there was a thing that came up that said it's their first 9-game losing streak since 1982.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I've never.
You don't remember the Yankees being this bad?
I was around.
Right.
Technically.
Yeah.
For some bad Yankees teams.
Right.
But I didn't experience them. They didn't permeate my body like they did. My dad probably getting a heart attack.
Yeah.
Watching the '92 Yankees, something like that.
We were both born in '98, so we literally have never even seen this team be under 500. Yes. So this has been.
We're both like generationless, where we're not quite millennials and not quite Gen
Zoomers,
Z. We're just kind of like in the middle, and nobody claims us.
We're too young to be old, too old to be young.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh man,
it's interesting,
well,
but
it is what it is.
You're about to join Gen X in the pain that you're about to experience.
It's true. We're with them now. We feel the same pain. We can relate in baseball, but
I find that to be I don't know the Yankees, because the Yankees are so consistently good, if not dynastic, right?
Yeah.
It is really shocking to see them this terrible. I kind of think that it may be for the best in some ways, because I think that there's a level of hubris in some decision making that's coming from the front office.
Oh yes.
As far as I don't think the Yankees are as bad as organizationally, right?
Right.
As some of the pre-postmortems of sorts, right? Like they're existing.
Yeah, there's a lot of these articles. Everyone's yelling about the way they do everything.
Of varying quality, right?
Right.
But because they still develop pitching really well. If they had a bad pitching year, but that's because Nestor and Rodon and got hurt, and
Severino's just in a nightmare.
Yes, Severino. Who knows what the heck happened to him?
Yeah.
But Garrett Cole might win a Cy Young Award, and they've found decent performances out of a lot of
the bullpen's strong.
A types, and the bullpen's lights out.
Yeah.
So they still develop pitching well, and they have a pretty good farm system. Believe it or not, they're just starting.
Whether or not they play them, that's a whole other.
Playing these guys as much,
another story.
Want them to,
yeah.
But they're not, but the farm system is not. It's not like they're not developing major league ready talent, and we see that in the fact that many people that they've traded have netted back, what were believed to be quality players at the time, whether that was Joey Gallo, or Anthony Rizzo, or whatchamacallit,
Frankie Montas,
again,
right?
Benintendi. These trades have been various levels.
Trevino,
Josh Donaldson,
Scott Efron.
But it shows that they're developing prospects well.
Right. Even Rortvedt. I mean, Rortvedt tonight had a good game, but Paul O'Neill has been on the record saying he thinks he's going to be a great hitter, and he was part of that terrible, the Josh Donaldson trade. So it's the
jury's out on Rortvedt because he's just
still too early to say. Yeah. But shown flashes. But yes.
He's jacked. You should Google a photo of him.
Oh my God, he's huge.
Not just a headshot.
Yeah, no. It's that picture of him with the
elbows up.
Yeah. Oh my God, the dumbbells. Yeah, he's huge.
he looks like he should hit.
Yeah.
So we'll see if he does,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Joe Girardi was also jacked and he's
Right.
not a hitter. So
Austin Wells is jacked, speaking of which.
use random buff white catchers.
Right. They're good at that. They're good at that.
But anyway, so but the problem, however, has been, I think, their belief that their best asset is not the pitching development. It's not the way they teach exit velocity to both their minor league draftees and retreads, right? From around the league. But their best asset is money.
Yeah.
And they don't use money well anymore.
No, they don't.
That's the problem.
They use it. They don't use it well.
I mean, they use it, but they don't use it well, and they also don't use it to their capacity either.
Yeah.
Like,
they don't. They didn't get Bryce Harper. That's the guy to go spend the money on.
Yeah.
Like, it's
it's they're penny wise and pound foolish. And
right.
So like, it is signing Anthony Rizzo instead of trading for Matt Olson or signing Freddie Freeman.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Taking on Josh Donaldson, taking on the Donaldson contract.
Right, exactly. It's a Josh Donaldson contract.
Yeah.
Rather than signing Carlos Correa.
Right.
For a 1-year deal at the same price. I know he's having a bad year right now, but
he didn't last year.
But he was very good last year. You could have used him last year, and I suspect that Carlos Correa will have a better next 10 years in Josh Donaldson, who will not be in baseball
after in the next 6 weeks.
He might have about 6 weeks left.
Yeah.
And so there's there are so many examples of such, and where they're not going after the premier talent as aggressively as they need to. And they're going for like the second or third best option,
right? Because
they think that they could either coach them up enough, or that they found a diamond in the rough or something like that, or simply just that we're okay with getting the fourth best option,
right?
Because we'd rather not pay the luxury tax, and so doing that enough, plus just having a couple of trades that admittedly did not work out, like Montas and
Benintendi last year,
and Benintendi, freak injury for Benintendi,
right? Yes,
injury, random injury, Efros, Lou Trevino, etc. Some stuff just sometimes stuff just happens, right? But but money covers a multitude of sins. Stuff happens to the Dodgers.
Yeah, Michael K likes to say that they're arrogant, and a lot of that I think comes from the arrogance of we're the Yankees, we'll figure it out, and it's like you can't. At a point, you still need talent. You still need the proven,
And one way to figure out is to go get a real superstar.
Go do it.
Instead of trying to get a B- player who
they're hoping
might be good if you coach him up in the right way.
Right.
That's you're not the Guardians, you're not the Rays. Stop trying to be the Guardians of the Rays. The Guardians get by being in a trash division.
Right.
And the Rays are just, I guess, a little smarter than you.
That's not smart enough for the postseason, as we've discussed. But yes.
So that's okay. That's okay because you can outspend the Rays in it, at any point you want.
Of course.
And so anyway, that's my take on the Yankees and why they are in the position they're in. It's not because they're that dumb, but they have become penny wise and pound foolish under the current Hal Steinbrenner, Brian, this iteration of Brian Cashman regime.
Right.
Right. And that's the thing that's most worth really excavating this offseason as to why do we why have so many of our recent transactions, and recent roster building strategies, not returned as much value as what the Astros or Dodgers or whatever do, and it's not just sign stealing, you use that in 2017, fine,
right, maybe 19,
it's not just, maybe, right, but it's not that, you can't use that as an excuse, you can't use, bad luck eternally as an excuse,
right? At least not for 3 years,
because you are literally in last place at this point,
and
it's getting worse, and the Nationals, a bad team, is much closer to a playoff spot than you, and they just beat you in your home court.
Not great.
Rather, with what was supposed to be your co-ace on the mound. Who actually had his first big game.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
actually, it didn't matter.
6 innings, 6 hits, 1 run.
It didn't matter because the team pitched a 2-hitter against you.
Right.
That's the what, again, I'm ranting here, but I think one example of a contract that shows the problems with the Yankees was the second DJ LeMahieu contract.
Yeah.
Okay. I will push back on that, but go on. Yeah.
I won't, but yeah.
And obviously, listen, DJ LeMahieu, turned out so much better than I thought when they first got him. Penny wise, pound foolish, right?
Right.
And no, granted, they should have gone. They should have signed Manny Machado, but
but DJ had worked out for a little bit. Yes,
was phenomenal. Truly, the 2019-2020, he was elite MVP.
He was. He's hitting 340 or whatever.
Yeah, he won a batting title.
Yes,
I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
I think in
the COVID year,
or 2020. Yes,
yeah, and so he was really good. However, he was one of many players who was entering their 30s. Right. At the time, and there were a lot of other more creative or interesting or just straight up obviously better options for the needs of the roster at that moment, right? And than DJ LeMahieu. And it wasn't just that they re-signed him, even though because he's coming off a great year, but rather than give him say like a 3 or 4 year deal, they stretched it out to like a 6-year deal because the luxury tax hit. It's 6. Yeah, it was like
6. Yeah,
because because
it's 15 a year. I know that
the luxury tax hit, 15 million a year was like low enough that they felt comfortable with, like spreading it out longer. But of course, that leads to a problem. It means that it's you're more likely to have DJ LeMahieu's really bad years still on a contract and no way to dispel it because he's not good enough anymore. That's what we're seeing right now with this guy hitting 240 with the 316 on base percentage. And he's lost his ability to hit the ball with authority with any consistency anymore. And so I just say lost.
The only reason that I will push back,
he's not showing it.
Yeah, the only reason I will push back is that in that offseason, I mean, I was pounding the table. You have to bring DJ back. I mean, nobody on the team could hit like that. I mean, for years, we had not seen anybody hit like that. So it seemed like a no-brainer to bring him back. He's a dude who was hitting 240, 340. Now he's hitting 240.
I wasn't against. I'm with you, man. I wasn't against, on a strategic level, bringing DJ LeMahieu back.
Yeah.
It's more just that
how they did it.
The way they structured a contract.
Yes.
was very risky.
Right.
Because of his age.
You're right.
It's like there's good reason to think this is you want shorter term deals,
right?
For guys in their early 30s, not longer term deals. If you can,
ask Aaron Hicks. You can go ask Aaron Hicks.
And Aaron Hicks is actually another great example of such.
Yeah.
In where he at that point he was getting a really good player. When they gave him the extension, but a player at that typically a guy like him would get 70 million over 3 years or 4 years, not 7.
Right.
But they wanted to bring, to stretch him out. Yeah, we'll get him in his mid 30s or whatever, early to mid 30s. But hopefully it works out. And again, it worked out comically bad. But but they added to their risk profile, to avoid the luxury tax, which they should simply not fear.
Yeah,
because they're the Yankees.
Now all these things have completely fallen apart.
It's this bogeyman that lives in their head.
Yeah,
and rent free.
Yeah,
enough, and then. And is this and makes them make bad choices with their money, when they could just go out and get real stars or retain these guys in ways that allow them to move from them quickly if things don't work out.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think it's gonna be interesting to see if they do anything to fix it. But anyway, Bradford, really appreciate you coming on and listening. In general, I mean, this has been fantastic. I mean, this is we're excited that we had you on, and hopefully we can have you on again. Absolutely, one of our favorite episodes yet. You were an incredible guest. You're the man. I'm very appreciative you having me on. When I saw that such a kind of podcast existed, I was super hyped. So. Hey, man. Well, that's great. I guess you're our exact audience. That's what we love to hear. Yeah. Do you have anything that you want to plug before we head out of here? Yeah, man, I'm on a dying social media platform. What's the name of it? What is that? Yeah, it sounds like a weird. It's a one-stop shop for global payment transactions, and I don't know. What a mess. Right-wing trolls. Yeah, I heard it best. But also me. I could be at times clever and entertaining. Yeah. Oh yeah. So if you follow me on Twitter.com, I'm sorry, not Sport.
I'm at BWD because it's my initials, Bradford William Davis.
Right.
BWD, but then we'll just repeat that over and over again.
There you go.
BWD,
Easy to find.
BWD, then you'll find me.
There we go.
I love that.
So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm also on Instagram, bwd.png. That's my professional IG where I post my stories or photos of me doing silly things.
Yeah.
So
good stuff.
A lot of memes, a lot of SpongeBob AI right now.
Love that. Yeah.
With Patrick singing Luther Vandross.
Right.
The
one good use of AI.
Right
yeah.
It's the only use, and it's wonderful.
Yep. I'm with you.
Well,
so yeah, man, that's where to find me, and I freelance here and there. You catch me at GQ. I used to be an insider, like Business Insider, and hopefully I'll be in your inbox or search history soon.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, man.
Sorry, that sounded kind of weird. Search history.
No, you'll be in there.
Not like that. I'm happily partnered.
And insert onto the email list.
That's going to do it for us this week on the Mudville podcast. Thank you so much again to Bradford William Davis for coming on and doing the first ever Mudville hate watch of The Blind Side. Yeah. We've never done one of those before.
Yeah, Bradford, if you come up with another one, we can.
We're game.
Maybe it's not a movie I like.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? Name it. You can come back on. We'll do it.
All right. That's going to do it for us. We're signing off. Goodbye.
See you next week.
Thank you.